are our greatest weapon of all.
First step in solving any problem is recognizing there is one.
It's time we started fresh. Pain isn't something we thought.
All we can ever do for our heroes is remember them, and they gave up two lives, the one they were living and the one they would have lived. They gave up everything for our country, for us. They pray for freedom and justice.
Some veterans not getting the timely care that they need. Less than 1% of Americans serving in uniform. Good news is that in recent years we've made historic investments to boost the VA budget.
What is it? Why should we care?
We should care about press freedom
because we were informed.
In democratic societies, free, diverse, and pluralist media enable public debates and are essential checks
You don't
on
look
power.
satisfied. Let's discuss.
Hey guys.
How you guys doing?
New episode finally after a long time. Episode 16, compensation and pension exam. Little bit details about that. So after you have applied for VA service-connected disability compensation, you will eventually receive a phone call or a letter from VA asking you to come to a CNP exam or compensation and pension exam. And if you have several disabilities, expect a couple letters to come, and you'll be asked to report and go to those CNP exams. And this is a normal and routine request. In California, most likely it's going to be QTC or MSLA. In other states, it might be different organizations/providers. So the main question, what can you expect at your CNP exams, and what kind of hints we can give you in addition to those that you already heard from us. So let's make a small overview about CNP exam. So
Yeah.
What is that, Joe?
So compensation and pension examinations is a very important and nearly universal step in the process in obtaining your benefits from the VA. Initial examination requests are typically initiated by the VA after the veteran files an application with the Veterans Benefit Administration. All pertinent evidence has been obtained, and now they're trying to figure out where you fall under their scales. So the application at minimum requires a veteran to submit evidence of a disability or the disabilities and to indicate how it or they may be connected to your military service. There are several ways to do it, and to establish service connectedness, the most common being to prove one of the following. Number one, the injury or disease resulting in a disability was incurred coincide with the service of the armed forces. A pre-existing injury or disease was aggravated by active service. A presumptive service connection was established by VA law. So what we're talking about is a lot of like Agent Orange. That's really a common one. Undiagnosed golf illnesses, things like that. Or a condition that occurred or resulted from an injury or disease that was incurred during time of service, whether it was wartime or not. After the application is received from the VBA, the VBA reviews it for its completeness, and is it reasonable under the so-called duty to assist to help a claimant out who files a substantially complete application and obtaining the evidence to substantiate his or her claim before making a decision on the claim. So the VA wants to see if you're being truthful or not before they're going to dig too deep into it. Once all the relevant evidence has been collected and all of the requested and available information has been received, depending on the conditions that have been identified from the VBA and the Veteran Service Representative or a rating Veteran Service Representative, will indicate that the Veterans Health will request that the Veterans Health Administration set up and conduct one or more of the examinations for those disabilities. These examinations will be conducted either by staff clinicians or by contracted health professionals, depending on the facility use and the need for specialists. So definitely around California, that's where you start seeing QTC and MSLA. The examinations may also be conducted in other circumstances. These include when it's required by regulations, it's necessary to resolve an uncertainty related to a diagnosis, there is a need to establish a nexus between an already diagnosed condition and military service, A veteran who has a disability that has already been established and is being service-connected indicates that this disability has worsened or that the level of disability rating does not accurately reflect his or her condition, or it requires as part of an adjudication to resolve a compensated related issue.
Most likely it's your first time. You'll be referred to an outside organization from VA, QTC or MSLA for California, other organizations for private organizations for other states, who will actually go through VA checklist and check you for those conditions that actually VA wants them to diagnose you. Or sometimes you might be going to a special section of VA at VA facility where some of VA doctors would conduct an exam on you. That's possible as well.
Yeah.
How do you know? You'll have information in the letter. That's it.
Yeah, you'll get a random letter in the mail, a few pages thick, saying you need to be here at this time, and don't miss it. Don't ever try to reschedule these exams or you're too busy or anything like that, because you could slow down your claim or you might get denied.
What happens at the compensation and pension exam? So I got my letter, I'm dressed up, somebody's driving me, and so I want to show up, so what should I do? What's going?
One, I always tell my guys to take your medical records with you, especially the things you think are important. Most of the time they don't want you to take medical records with you or they don't want to look at them. But I say take them with you anyways just to be safe. But the main thing what's going on is the comp and pension exam is a doctor's appointment where your disabilities get evaluated. Usually this exam is conducted at a VA hospital or a clinic. The doctor writes a report which goes back to the VA regional office where you submitted your application for benefits.
And actually, when you get to that CNP exam, let's say you're going for tinnitus or you get for arthritis, you can Google and look online for actually a list of questions or a checklist from VA. What most likely doctor are gonna ask you, and it doesn't matter if it's VA doctor or if it's a private provider. Most likely they're gonna follow that VA checklist.
Yeah.
So at least you know what they're gonna ask you.
So when you go to your exam, it will be different from a regular doctor who visits because you won't get prescribed any medication or given any medical treatment. It's literally just seeing what's going on. If you have a mental health disability, the doctor will ask you questions and have you explain your symptoms. You might be asked to complete some psychological tests, but don't worry about it. The test is routine. It's just part of the exam. If you have a physical disability, the doctor will examine you, ask questions, and if necessary, perform medical tests. So that's when you're bending, turning, seeing your range of motion, things like that.
Yeah, but also as a good hint, before you go to the doctor, try to Google and find that VA checklist. It's not going to be 100% that what you're going to get, but at least it will give you an idea of what question you'll be asked.
Yeah, and so try to prepare yourself the best you can.
So, enough been said about not missing your CNP appointment, but I got a question. Who actually schedules that CNP exam? You said VBA, but how does it happen?
The VA Medical Center is responsible for sending a CNP notice to you with the date and time of your appointment. After you apply for benefits, make sure that the VA Medical Center where you go for treatment has your current address and phone number. Otherwise, you might not get the notice of the exam, and if you don't show up, you may not be able to get it rescheduled. Your benefits may get denied as a result, or you may wait several months for another exam to get scheduled, like he was saying. And it may not be worth waiting another 6 months for a tinnitus test.
Yeah, maybe you moved, maybe you changed your phone number, they can't reach you, they send you a letter, and but the exam was already scheduled, so you didn't get a letter, exam date passed. I understand it's not of your fault, but somehow you missed it.
Yeah. You're not blown out of the water completely, but it's got to take more time than what you were hoping for.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens is the VA hospital and the clinics use one computer system. The VA regional offices use another. And so the two systems are separate, so VBA and VA medical do not talk to each other as well as people might think or what we want to believe. So always make sure that both your medical provider and the VBA who's going to be dealing with your claim has your new address, has your phone number, otherwise you might miss it. Make certain that the VA Medical Center has your current address and telephone number. When the regional office decides to make that exam, it alerts the VA hospital or the VA clinic where the exam will take place to notify you of the exam. The hospital or clinic generally retrieves your address and telephone number from its own computer system, not from the regional system. If you fail to show up for the exam, you may or may not be able to get it rescheduled by calling the compensation and pension unit at the VA hospital or VA clinic. The unit's telephone number is usually listed in the letter notifying you of the appointment, so that's another reason you might want to keep your address current.
I would say if you live not too far away from VA hospital, normally those people who schedule CNP exams are somehow related. They are on the first floor, most likely joined with a financial service and transportation facility or transportation people. So you can go there and ask questions there.
Yeah.
That's how I got help to reschedule my CNP exam, because I couldn't get it done through the phone.
Yeah, the 1-800 number sometimes is a little hard to get through.
But it can be done, but I just got confused, that's why.
Yeah. But yeah, either way it works, and whatever you got to do to reschedule it, go for it. If the CNP unit is unable to reschedule the exam, then try to contact the regional office, but be prepared for several months wait before you get a new appointment date. In some cases, the VA will just deny your claim because you didn't report for the exam. If this happens, it could be many months, occasionally some years, before the exam is rescheduled. And so an important note, you're the only person who receives notice for this exam. As soon as you receive that letter or a telephone call, be sure to tell your representative or attorney he or she may want to talk with you before that exam to help build your records or whatever you got to do to have better odds.
Yeah. So once your CNP is scheduled, if you are expecting couple CNP exams, and let's say you just got one letter from, like, let's say for California, you got a letter from MSLA that there is an exam that is scheduled for you, but you have that feeling in the gut that there might be more exams scheduled. Most likely it's going to be from the same provider, so you can always ask MSLA representative if they have any other exams for you scheduled on file. And they will be more than happy to tell you, even though that you don't have documents on hand yet. So, as been said, when you order to attend CNP exam, you must attend, and failure to show up is likely to terminate your application for benefits. It's not that bad, but that's what can happen. Or it can delay your application also significantly for, I think in general, it's probably like 2 months. It's not like it's 6 months for everybody. I would say maybe 2 months.
Yeah, and it all depends on where you live. You know, here in California, there's a lot of vets, so then you get kind of pushed back at the end of the line. Some other states that may not have a lot of claims going through, it might be easier to reschedule it.
Yeah.
All depends.
Even though that you can reschedule, I would say don't reschedule. If it's inconvenient for you to come on this or that day, unless something's like big happened, I would say go.
Yeah, sometimes there's weird ones where the VA sends you to a doctor's appointment and it's 150 miles away from your house. That's understandable. No one's expecting you to be there. Like, just call them and let them know and see if they could try to do something closer for you. It still might delay your claim. They still might try to give you a little bit of hassle for it. But at least you could bring it up, because every once in a while you'll see like my World War II guys, my Korean vets, and they got some QTC or MSLA exam that's incredibly far away for anybody, let alone somebody who's 80, 90 years old. So just let the VA know what's going on and keep them in the loop.
Okay, let's touch a little bit what to bring to exam and why. So you said that I should probably take my medical file, C file, or my whole medical history.
Yeah, any, especially for whatever that condition is. So say they're going to talk to you about your tinnitus, the ringing in the ears. Then bring in any of the records you have showing that you have tinnitus, that you worked on flight lines, that you're around loud noises. So whatever's in your medical file, especially when you're first in service, we take a lot of hearing tests. So there should be a history of showing that that hearing got a little bit worse. And so that could help you out. Your MOS could help you out too, especially if you're working on flight lines, you're, doing demolition or doing something wild. And what you're trying to do is just kind of support yourself, but a lot of the times they may not even want to look at it, but they'll be there to protect you. Because if there's a document that's crucial to your claim, you want to bring it with you, because most of the time the regional office will forward that C file to the doctor, but sometimes they don't, or sometimes that doctor just simply didn't have time to read it, and that might blow you out of the water.
Yeah, if you hear something, I don't know why you've been sent here, at least you have some proof in your hands.
Yeah.
What's going on? Because anything can happen.
Yeah, and every once in a while you do hear a lot of veterans complain about the QTC and MSLA portion of the claims process, and it's usually because either the doctor's a little confused or a little off, or the veteran's a little confused or a little off, and the unpreparedness of either one of those groups could change the outcome.
Yeah. Also, some support documents that you might have, maybe you didn't have time to send them to VA, to your regional office, and those documents would support your claim, or you have some treatment records from your private doctor, that might help as well. I would say most likely 90%, like 9 out of 10 times, doctor at CNP exam won't look at it. He most likely would tell you, I don't need it, I have everything, don't worry about that. But if you still feel like that it's important, still show it to him, or at least you can give it to him and he can forward it to VA. But your best bet actually is to send those support documents, even though that you got them later, to VA.
Definitely. You want to get those records in as soon as possible, and especially if you're at that CNP exam, that's when you're getting close to that last stage before they make a decision, so make sure that stuff gets in there.
Yeah. Maybe like when you show up and CNP exam and you forgot why you're there, you have your records, you look at them, and here you go.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here. So how do I get ready for the exam?
Yeah, so don't be shy. Open up, and if you don't say it, the doctor won't report it, so the regional office won't know about it, and they won't understand what's going on. So most compensation and pension examinations are routine. You go in, you see the doctor, you leave, but there's no question that other CNP exams are more difficult. For example, if your claim is for PTSD, you'll be asked to sit down with a stranger, the CNP doctor, to talk about events that you may not even wish to think about. It may help to keep in mind that you won't be talking to a man on the street or some random guy. You'll be talking to a professional, someone who understands PTSD and may well have treated many veterans suffering from PTSD. Even if you expect that your exam will be routine, it's normal to be anxious beforehand, because it's just our nature. It's only a doctor's appointment, but it's also a new experience, and there's income at stake. So of course, there's a little bit of uncertainty in the air.
And some of those exams can be uncomfortable, and it's not that they're supposed to be uncomfortable, it's just the nature of the exam. And if you don't feel comfortable talking about those episodes for PTSD or something like that, but you have to, just talk to your friend or to your wife before you go and tell that stuff to the doctor. Or can do like myself, you can write everything on the paper and just read it before you go to CNP exam, and just tell whatever is your story. So, but it might be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So a couple more tips on what to do. So be on time or a little bit early before your exam.
Be polite. yelling at these examiners for injustices you might perceive won't do you nothing but alienate, and so it's not going to help you at all.
Yeah, don't curse. So keep your bad words to yourself, and probably if you think it's something what doctor says doesn't apply to you, you can say it to VA later, because he is just there going through the checklist. And so if you don't know what's on his checklist, you might be questioning yourself, like why he's asking me all those questions.
Yeah.
You probably like, I don't know, client number 10 today, or like client number 25, and nothing against you. So he probably won't even remember your name after you close the door, but he got to go through those questions.
Yeah. And keep in mind, he is here to judge you. It's their job to judge you. That's why you're there. And it's to try to be adjudicated fairly. And so try to keep in mind, how do you want this guy to remember you? As, that scary veteran? Or do you want somebody who's looking for help and trying to explain what happened to him? Because sometimes these outside doctors are not vets, so they don't really understand where you're coming from. So if you're cussing at them, throwing a bunch of acronyms at them, they may not understand. And so you might not get a claim that's judged fairly. But if you're straight to the point and you're just trying to be as respectful as possible and understand they're under stress too, you'll probably have better odds.
Yeah. If you at CNP exam for fungus infection, you don't have to talk about alcohol or drug-related issues because it doesn't apply. And the same goes to other CNP exams. If something doesn't apply to that exam, don't waste doctor's time, because that time you could be actually telling your story and giving the information to the doctor so he can fill out the questionnaire, because eventually he don't have 2 hours for you. Most likely maybe like 30 minutes, an hour, and at the most, and some CNP exams maybe like 10-15 minutes.
Yeah.
So like when you start talking about unrelated stuff, then you'll have 2 minutes to talk, or like 5 minutes at the end to talk about the issue, actually why you came there to the exam.
Yeah, so don't talk about VA horror stories or waste your time about how the VA's been negative or anything like that. Talk about what you're there for, why is it due to your service, and use the records you got to back yourself up.
Yeah, answer all the questions to the best of your ability. If you don't know something, just say no. So don't try to, remember something that never happened, or just
embellish or
use your imagination. No,
Yeah.
If you don't know, that's no.
Yeah.
Just no, I don't know. In general, this questionnaire is straightforward. So
so try to be honest. You don't need to embellish or blow the things up bigger than what you think they are. Just the facts. Because they're going to look at your unit records, they're going to look at your medical records and see how these tie in together. You may run into someone who checks these stories out, and if possible have letters from people that you served with, so like unit diary copies of incidents that occurred during your time and space, and letters from family members. Family member letters usually don't add a lot of weight to your case because families are there to support you and the examiners understand that, but at least it gives that examiner a basic idea of what's going on with your life behind closed doors. Because, most of us, when you're out in public, when you're at work, it's a completely different person than when you're at home. And that's just the reality of how we live. So let that guy understand what's going on with you when you're at home.
Yeah. And try to understand what each CNP exam is about. So if it's for PTSD or mental disorders, just pick up this story or the moment in your military career that would actually describe your state of mind, or how that incident affected you at the most. So something that was like really horrible happened to you, or something that actually happened to you during the military service that affected you the most. So if you had a 30 years career, most likely you'll have 30 years of stories to tell. But pick up maybe 4 or 5 and then tell them all to your wife or to your friend and ask him to pick up, the most important one, and then maybe a couple more to back up. Because as we said, so examiner doesn't have the whole day to listen to you. So pick up one story, back it up with a couple more stories, and have all the documents ready.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are basic tips, and doctors are humans the same way as we are, and they have empathy. So the way you present yourself, the way he might judge you, even though that he has to follow questionnaire, or he has to ask you specific questions. So just be nice as the same way like you're supposed to be nice to everybody.
Yeah. You get more with sugar than you do with salt.
Right. So after exam, tell your representative, might be a VSO attorney or like any other veteran organization, how it went, and then just wait for results.
Yeah. You did the best you can. You submitted all your evidence, and let the rest roll.
Yeah. Life goes on. Just wait. It's all about wait, actually.
Yeah, the whole hurry up and wait still exists very well.
Yeah. So how to answer questions at the exam? Of course, be honest, straightforward about your question, about questions. Don't exaggerate your symptoms, but don't diminish them either.
Yeah, and I think that's a big problem with a lot of us is we kind of downplay what we do and say, oh, it's not that big of a deal. And that's where you kind of get screwed when it comes to these exams. You want to let them know how it really is. And so don't be shy about it. Most of us really kind of say, give it to the next guy, give it to the guy who did more than me. But it's because of you that anybody's getting anything. So don't diminish your own stories or diminish your own service. Tell them what happened, be honest with it, and you should do all right.
Yeah. Explain to the doctor exactly how symptoms impact your life. So pretty much you tell him what happened, tell him about the pain or whatever you feel, maybe happiness, and how does it impact your life nowadays. So those 3 elements. So, okay, when it's done, what's going on afterwards? Who reviews my records?
Yeah, so once you get done with the medical exam, that's pretty much your last stage of anything that the VA needs from you. And so now what happens is the doctor is supposed to review your records. So the VA is supposed to send a copy of your claim file to the doctor in advance of the exam. This is because for a CMP exam to be considered adequate, the doctor is required to review the documents that you've submitted. A guide for veterans facing QTC exams?
Yeah, if you want to be a little bit psycho, you can go into those hints as well. When you're facing or when you're at CNP exam, before actually doctor reviews your record.
Yeah.
So you can get a full name of the doctor who examines you.
Their business card, anything just in case, to kind of show you were there, and just in case anything kind of comes up funny.
Yeah, you can Google, don't look at those guys on Facebook, don't try to friend them. It's not impolite, unprofessional, not correct, but you can actually figure out by doing that if they are certified to do those exams, what are actually, of course they're certified, but I mean what kind of specialties they are doctors in.
Right.
Because like mental illnesses can be a vague, could have a vague number of symptoms. So the doctor might be a specialist in a PTSD or like in some, specific illnesses. Yeah, so once you got all that information, at least you'll know a little bit better what to expect.
Yeah, because now after that exam, that examiner is going to smash everything together and give it to the VBA, and that's when they're going to see where you fall under their scales.
So let's say, like after exam, doctor reviews my medical record, he sends a report or whatever he finds. What happens if I found a new document, a new evidence? So
you could still submit it. If you have new documents that you haven't sent to the VA yet, or documents that you have that you haven't submitted in the prior month, be sure to bring those copies for the doctor because they won't be in your claim folder yet. Also bring a copy of any documents that you think is important to your disability claim, but keep it simple. Doctors they don't have the time to review too many pages of documents, so anything that shows you're diagnosed, a doctor's letter saying I believe it's due to your service, things like that, DBQ forms, let them see those at the very least, or make sure that it gets in your claim file. But even after your C&P exam, if you have those new records, make sure they get into your file before the VA actually makes a decision.
yeah, so also, like you are listening to our advices that we are giving you on the podcast, it's not better or worse than any other advice that you might find on internet and get from your friends. Judge for yourself. But as a hint, also beware of some advices that you might find on internet.
Yeah, be aware that it's advice. It's not, and there's really no absolution to any of this. It's just advice. So if there's anything we're saying that helps you out, cool. If there's another group that you're looking at online and they have a couple ideas that you think will help you out, use them too. But be aware that it's advice.
Yeah, be real. If you find an advice that become a homeless for, 2 5 months or maybe a year before your claim go through, just be homeless and greet your doctor in front of VA facility in old crappy clothes. Probably it's not a good advice.
Yeah.
Just if somebody tells you don't brush your teeth when you go to dental exam, just don't take it as literally, because it might be a stupid advice.
Yeah. And yeah, acting like you have a disability or acting like you have something looks like acting. It doesn't look real. Mm-hmm. And so be honest with what's going on. If you act like it looks false, then that examiner is going to feel that it's false, and you're probably not going to go anywhere.
Yeah. On the other hand, if during exam, if it's the first time you tell your story to an examiner and somehow you become stressful and it just overwhelms you and you don't feel comfortable, don't forget that there is a veteran crisis line that you can call.
1-800-273-8255 and press 1. And they'll also offer support through chat or text, or you could send the text message to 838-255 or the War Veterans Call Center, which is 1-877-WAR-VETS, which is 1-877-927-8387, which is run by the Vet Center program specifically for combat vets and MST survivors. So especially around California, around here in Los Angeles, there's definitely a lot of vet centers, and they definitely help out with trying to take some of that stress off you guys.
Yeah. If you have somebody, bring somebody with you.
Yeah.
So it's probably the best advice, and let them handle.
Yeah, let them drive you home.
Yeah. So be advised that CNP examiners or those doctors, they do not make decision about your claim. They play a significant role in how your claim would be decided, but they're not the ones that actually put the check mark against your claim to go through. It's just one of the process that you got to accomplish.
Yeah.
So there is actually a team. We covered that subject in the previous podcast, which is called the Rating Veteran Service, department, who actually rate your claim and who actually sees how your claim go through different processes. So going to CNP exam is just one of those processes.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you're going to be rated by the VA.
Yep. So don't ask CNP examiner for any medications or any advice how you should go with medication or with your treatment or what is the treatment plan. He might advise. His job is just to evaluate you and go through the questionnaire as of today. As of tomorrow, it's VA, who is your treating facility.
Yeah.
So if the VA didn't send the doctor your records, that's where Joel's advice come into play. Bring your records with you, even though it's 1 out of 10 times that you actually would need it.
Yeah. One time I had to do it for myself and I had records to back myself up, and thankfully that doctor looked at them, but they didn't see it in their file. So that's one reason I always tell people to take your records with you.
Yeah, and since it's not easy to reschedule or get a new appointment, it's better to have those records on you, even though if you don't use them, or doctor never asks for them,
Yeah.
or they don't want to look at it.
Yeah. Better be safe than sorry.
Yeah. So, as been said, the doctor will write a report after the exam and send it to VA, and that's it. That's his job.
Yep.
Yeah. So VA regional office will take care of your claim from the time that he sends the report, and they will proceed to another step in order for your claim to be adjudicated. But I would say the CNP exam probably, I would say it's it's probably more than 50%. 50% of the job that needs to be done in order for your claim to be decided.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree. I think it's one of the bigger steps in the whole process.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it for compensation and pension exam and tips. And I don't know, Joe, if you have any suggestion about the book, great movie or stuff to do.
I seen Doctor Strange the other day, and that was...
Well, also, for the movies, I can recommend a good documentary, direct order documentary. It's about a soldier who was ordered to take an anthrax vaccine, and he got brain damage after that.
Wow.
To end up, quote or words of wisdom of the day. What do you got, Joe?
One of the key problems today is that politics is such a disgrace. Good people don't go into government.
Donald Trump.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. That's it, folks. Thanks for listening. Until next time, over and out.